What does it take
to turn this
to
this?
I'm Justin.
And I am the Top Gear M&M, otherwise known as Aaron.
Please don't give him any more nicknames. We are going to show you what it takes to take what we started with to something like this. It's a process, and it's a really interesting one. Let's head back over to other Bronco and meet Tim and get started.
Start from the ground up.
So you want to restore a car or build a hot rod.
That is a project. What does it take to make it happen?
A lot more than most people think. We have a thing that we do when we're trying to make something up called donning it, where we just make up a number and figure that's what it's going to take. But we're here to show you what to expect when you're going to take something from this into what we showed you a second ago. Now, we're not experts at this, even though we've written plenty of checks.
But our good friend Tim is used to taking projects like this and turning them into beautiful restorations that you can drive and have fun with. So let's find Tim and see what he says about what it's going to take to turn your rust bucket into your dream car. Hey Tim.
How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. So I see you got this Bronco out here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what it takes to do a full project. Where are we going? We're at the start right here. What do we need to know?
Well, Broncos are one of the most popular restored vehicles in our times right now. They sell from anywhere from $100,000 to the new record of $650,000 for a first-gen Bronco, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
There's companies that are reproducing these as brand new vehicles, but if you've got an original vehicle, most people would rather start here and take this on as a project. In a Bronco project, there's lots of different ways to do this vehicle. And what we'll do is we'll look at it, analyze it, and then understand what the customer's real wants or needs are. And wants or needs are, is it a family vehicle, so there's an emotional attachment? Is it an original build? Or is it a hot rod build where we lift this thing in the air 8 inches and figure out what he's going to do with it next?
So is it better to start with something like this that's more original but pretty well beat up? And I mean, this is a rust bucket here. This is a real project. Is it better to start from here or to find one that's maybe survived a little better, maybe one that's already been restored?
That's a great question. And the answer to the question is yes and yes. Until you pull it completely apart, it's impossible to understand what's underneath. Until you really dive into it. And what we'll do is we'll look around. I mean, you've got rust everywhere. On this particular truck here, just from our initial look at this, I'm going to tell you that it'd be probably easier to start with something that's a reproduction body, which is what they're making now for these. It'll save time and money.
Yeah.
And then from there, we get to start fresh with a brand new, all new metal structure without a bunch of rust.
But if you go with a reproduction body, do you have the same value when you finish your project as you would if you went with an original steel?
That's the difference. If you're wanting a perfect, streamlined, reproduction, newish car or vehicle or a Bronco, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that not so original. It's going to look super nice. And we've done a lot of Broncos. One of my best friends is known as one of the best Bronco restoration guys in the country. He has taught me a tremendous amount about these. He showed me where all the little rust pockets are, things that you just don't see. So if you did go buy one at an auction, there's things that you need to look at. If you bring one off of a ranch or Colorado, because a ton of these were sold up in Colorado, you got to really look deep into this before you get started on it.
Okay.
So I would say, let me give you some ideas of what's going on. You pointed out all of the rust, you're 100% right.
Yep.
Inside the car, you've got, again, more rust holes.
Yep.
You've got 100% of everything in this one has to be looked at, restored, rebuilt, something. The word re.
Yeah.
Something there. So
tear it all down.
Tear it all down. And then I can almost tell you the minute that we start tearing it all down, like here, see this hidden rust? See this here? What happens is you get that all through the vehicle.
Yeah.
And we just got to find it, identify it, and then understand what we got to do with it.
So I'm not going to hold you to any figures here.
Sure.
Don't anybody expect an invoice for this amount. But if I brought this to you today and said, look, I want to make a great looking Bronco and I want to do it out of this hunk of metal right here, how much just in prep work am I going to be into? How much am I going to spend getting you to patch all the rust, to sand it down, blast it? What is this going to cost me just to get the project started?
With every client I work with, I always come back to them and ask them, how long is rope? If you can define on how long rope is, I can tell you exactly what it's going to cost. In other words, it's all going to be based on time. It's going to be based on what the customer's wants or needs are. It's also going to be based on how much metal work I have to do to the vehicle. The most expensive part of any project is paint and body. It is what sucks up most of the budget, anywhere from 30 to 40% of a budget. If the budget is $100,000, which is a good number, you're going to spend 30, 40, 50 grand in paint work and body work.
So if you really want to cut it down, really look for the right donor vehicle that's going to minimize the amount of restoration work that goes into the metal. If you've got your body figured out, you know what your donor vehicle is going to be, what is the next step that you need to consider in the process?
Well, the easiest way to explain it is to show you. So why don't we run over here, and we've got a 63 split window Corvette we're doing, and we can start with the frame.
Okay, let's check it out.
Let's check it out.
Hey,
Here
Tim,
we are.
this is a Husman Bros video, so we
Yes,
have to
it
both
is.
be in it. So you said start with the frame, and I found a frame.
Well, you found quite the frame.
Okay.
It's a custom-built chassis. Delivery time is anywhere from a year to a year and a half.
So you didn't build this?
No.
Okay.
There's a custom chassis company that makes only Corvette chassis, and this is the Corvette's gonna sit on top of this. But this is a special chassis.
So you said this is for a 63 split window, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Now, I'm going to ask you how much this is, but first I want to say it looks expensive because that pumpkin's giant.
It's big.
Okay.
That means it has to support something just as giant up front.
What's the plans for this?
Well, what it is we have a customer that is, his dream car is a 63 split window, and he wants a custom 63 split window. So what custom means is you dream it up, we make it, and if you can't dream it up, we're going to dream it up and make it for you.
Okay.
So to answer the question, the rear end, yes, it's special. The suspension is special, has a piggyback. Each shock has a piggyback. What this does is it allows for almost infinite adjustment to the suspension of this car, which is going to be critical because we're putting a supercharged LT4 Corvette motor in this.
Very nice.
Along with everything else that needs to come with that. So when you do a custom chassis like this, you're anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000.
Wow.
This particular one costs somewhere in between. We're not going to put a number on it because we don't want to.
Sure.
At the end of the day, everything on this thing is custom made. It has aluminum hubs made by Willwood.
Okay.
It has
I saw
custom 14-inch brakes. I mean, the brake kit is about $16,000.
Wow.
That's a lot.
So what's the budget on a car like this?
This particular one's going to be anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000.
So would you say that's probably the most important part, is to figure out what are you going to spend? What is the number, right? You asked how long rope is, but really it's how deep are the pockets.
That's
right?
part of that. To make it, the cooler you make it, the more it's going to cost.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to. And not everybody has $500,000 to go plug into one of these cars.
Certainly.
So we're at the extreme. Literally at the extreme.
Right.
We do have other cars that have cost more. It's just a matter of what makes the customer happy when he's driving his car. And that's what this is about.
So, you know, if we go back to our original Bronco there.
Yeah.
Let's say I brought you that car and said my budget's 30 grand. What do I get for that?
Well, what I would do is sit down with the customer and understand the overall piece, and then take the 30 grand and put it in appropriately to where the car's mechanically safe and driving, and then they go have fun with it.
Right.
Because they probably, if it didn't drive now, they probably have never driven it.
Right.
Yep. So what you do is you create a list, and then the list will change, and the car design will evolve over time without doing any expense, not adding any time on our part or their part, or buying a bunch of things that are already going to be changed.
Right.
So mechanically, you can easily invest $30,000, get a motor, a transmission, get the car safe to drive.
Right.
And that's an appropriate way to do it. So if you do a build, you don't have to do it all at once.
Right. I know we've done that with our Divco. That's been an ongoing
It
12-year project.
It is still ongoing.
Absolutely. I got to bring it back in for headlights now. So, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be done all at once. With that original Bronco, I mean, rat rods are in.
Yeah.
Get it safe, get it
That's
driving,
true.
put some
That's
reasonable wheels on it, and I guess you get away with it for as long as you can until you get to the next steps.
That is absolutely right.
So this is really neat. This is incredible. So let's talk more about next steps. So now we're talking more body work, right? We've got the frame.
Yeah.
Now we're putting the body back on it. and we're digging down into it to see what's next.
Correct. At the end of the day, what we got to do is analyze each piece. What makes sense for the customer? Do they want metallics and airbrushing and all of that? Or do they just want a simple, basic Bronco paint job, which is a non-metallic paint job?
We're still talking body work.
I know, I know.
Okay, so
I know.
oh, we got to start prepping for it.
We got to
right?
prep for it. What we got to do is understand the bigger picture.
Got it.
Without a bigger picture, and you do it in micro steps, you're going to have a Divco.
All right, show me some of these micro
let's go.
steps.
Hey Tim, I was just checking out this fine Italian piece of machinery. But forget about it. Let's talk about this Bronco over here. This is another project.
Yes.
And this one started in a different place. If that one was a $5,500 donor vehicle, this was maybe a $35,000 donor vehicle.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yes.
But obviously with more put into the original, less theoretically is spent. So where are you on this one?
Well, what we've got here is a customer that underneath the car, we've been working on this car for 7 years, off and on. Customer's been driving it, having fun.
Okay.
And in the wintertime, it always shows up here because they don't drive it in the winter.
Yeah.
And what we do is we find things and do things along the way. The suspension in this is upgraded.
Looks solid.
It is solid. Inside, we did custom upholstery for this car.
Love the interior.
We did some really neat things over those 6 or 7 years. So this process, all of this was completely rusted out. Remember earlier we were talking about those hidden gems?
Yeah.
This one was more than a gem.
Okay.
So what we did is we ended up replacing the apron. We replaced all of this. And again, what we want to do is move the vehicle along for the bigger picture.
Okay, and what's the bigger picture on this one? What do they want to end up with?
Well, ultimately, the family wants, as a husband and wife, what they want is a really cool looking truck when they're completely finished. And again, remember I said paint is always the most expensive piece of this.
Yeah.
I always make paint the last part of the process simply because I get everything mechanical done and it's looking great. Paint is always the last because I want it to look super sharp when the whole thing is completed.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the paint too early, you get a lot of mechanics leaning on it, you know, potential for scratches.
Guaranteed.
That's why you don't finish the front lawn before you're done with the remodel project inside the house.
That is a good scenario.
Yeah.
So, end of the day, the motor on this particular car, the reason it cost a little more is because what they did is they put a Mustang engine, a 5.0.
Nice Cobra engine.
And it's beautiful, and it fits barely in this engine bay.
Barely, yeah.
I didn't do the engine work, but whoever did, they could have done a few little things, little changes here because they ended up having to cut the hood.
Yeah.
I'm not the big fan of that, but in the bigger picture, what will end up happening is we'll do a glass hood on this. All of this will then look really cool.
How much more is someone going to spend on their project if they have to end up with their second shop?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, and what we're doing is we're doing bits and pieces along the way to where it lessens the cost of the paint and body.
Yeah.
I mean, paint and body, we talked about chassis, that's easy. Once you get into paint and body and define all of where the rust is, rust doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It will always keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And we can get into paint and body, and we can get into metal work and all of that in another conversation because we do a lot of process proofing. And what that means is we make sure that all of our metal when it leaves here is super clean and perfect before we even start painting.
Yeah, and I know from talking to you that you do deal with some cars that have been at other shops that haven't done a good job, that may have abandoned projects or maybe gotten kicked off of projects. And so we'll come back to that later in the video, but I want to hear a few tips for you, or actually from you, for our audience, to know how to pick the right shop from the get-go. Because if you have to move your project from one shop to another shop to be able to complete it, you're probably going to waste some time, and the new shop is going to go back and fix some errors that you already paid for. But,
right, that is, again, the process is the process. If you can find a shop that is all-inclusive, if you can find a shop that can do everything from start to finish, good for you, because there's not a lot of them out there. The industry here is actually a smaller industry than you would ever believe, so there's not shops everywhere. As you guys know, the Divco has been bounced around to lots of different places.
Yeah, it's like the Village Bicycle. Yeah.
It is just like the Village Bicycle. But end of the day, people have limped it along.
Yep.
And then it takes time to massage out the limp along pieces.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So our plan was not crystal clear from the very beginning. We had a very basic plan. Get a truck, get a Divco that can go on the highway. That was pretty much it right there. But I think what I'm seeing after all these years of working around shops is that it pays to have the right shop. Would you say that you're similar to a general contractor for a project?
The parallels are absolutely correct. What we are doing is we are not hiring people to come in and work on the vehicles. We actually, and our staff is 100%, they're all employees here at the shop. So what we're doing is we're general contracting to the owner of the vehicle. We're basically overseeing the entire build, trying to keep them informed. And sometimes, you know, keeping them informed is, hey, I'm gonna redo the entire dash of the car. I need you to come in. So it does take time on their part as well. They are a integral part of making the success of this vehicle to be the vision that they have.
So you've got a really comprehensive shop. You've got a lot of in-house employees, but you guys don't do everything.
No.
But you can manage a whole project because the next big part of the project is the engine, which is not a shop that you have yet.
Yes.
But you can get the right engine because you know the right people. So tell us more about engines.
Let me take you over here and show you differences between a motor like this and a motor in a custom car.
All right, let's check it out.
Tim, when I heard you were talking engine, I figured you'd be coming over this way because I saw what's going on in this car. But I have one question having seen that. Does VC stand for very costly edition?
Yes, it does.
Well, let me show you guys why. This is incredible.
It is incredible. It's the owner's vision of having a Chrysler motor in a Chrysler car.
That makes sense. You know,
Yep.
I would hate to see this with LS in it.
Oh, that would be a shame.
Absolutely.
But I mean, this is old versus new collided into one car.
So you did the whole drivetrain on this, I assume, right?
Well, no, another shop, again, knowing your boundaries,
Okay.
and this is important,
Right.
knowing your boundaries. V10s, can we build and install? Yes. We sent the car out for 6 months just to have the motor completely rebuilt. Gave it a lot more horsepower. It screams now.
I'm sure.
But knowing where your boundaries are, that is outside of what we do. And do we work on motors? Do we build motors? Do we have the capability of doing it? Yes, we do. On this particular project, this car is pretty special to begin with. So what we said, we're gonna push back on this and we're gonna send this out to some professionals. They shipped the car out. It came back to us much different than it was. It's alive.
Okay.
Really alive.
But this is a Viper V10 motor.
Yes.
Okay, and so you said this thing screams now. How many horsepower is in this?
Well, we haven't really put it on a dyno, but
Okay.
we know it's at least 650 to 700 horsepower.
Wow, that's
I mean, the Hennessy cars are 850 plus.
Right.
And there you go.
Okay.
Essentially the same thing.
All right.
And the guys that did the work did an absolutely great job.
It looks fantastic.
Yes.
So, you know, not everybody's going to want to put a fire-breathing monster in their car like this.
Correct.
But just for a frame of reference, maybe we've inspired somebody.
Yeah.
What was the drivetrain alone on this?
Well, you got to start out with not just the drivetrain, but the chassis, because the chassis
Has to be
is
able to
super
take it.
important. It has to take it. Remember the chassis we looked outside?
Right.
There's a reason it holds 1,250 horsepower.
Okay.
Because there are people that want 1,250 horsepower.
Sure.
So this particular one here has a custom stretched actual Viper chassis underneath it.
Okay.
This is a unibody car, right? No chassis.
Okay.
Now it sits on top of a chassis. So that allows that engine and drivetrain to be complete without it coming apart on the customer.
Okay.
So there was a lot of thought and time. So
So it's not just slapping a motor in.
No, not this car. Not
Right,
at
we're
all.
I mean, you bring the wrong motor to the wrong car, like your Corvette.
Yep.
You've got to start from the bottom,
Correct.
and then now we're here.
The engine itself, if
Okay.
you did an engine swap to a Viper and you didn't have to cut firewall, you didn't have to do anything, you're usually $35, $45, $50,000 to do just to get
Just
started. Just to get started.
Really?
That's not your transmission. It's not the drive shaft. It's not the rear end. It's not all the other moving pieces along the way.
Right.
So when you go to do this is where that bigger vision is really,
It's not
really
just-
important.
It's not just stabbing it in and
No.
away we go. So I think we're finally on paint now.
Oh,
Actually,
boy.
I've got one more question before we get
What you
there.
got?
I know you want to show us the paint shop. So when this car is all done, round number, how many dollars will be in this car-ish?
This is not the perfect example for the question.
What,
Because
so,
this
let's
particular
talk
car,
like people now for a second.
this particular car is almost $1 million build.
So I want to talk about that because that's part of the thing. I've got 200 grand in my Divco at this point.
Yeah.
It's worth 75, right? Maybe 100. Who knows?
Yeah, who
right?
knows?
But so that's what I want to say is that. So when we're building this car, if this is close to $1 million bucks, is he going to get his money back out of this? Is that realistic? Is that a thing that you can expect when you're building a hot rod?
You know, 9 years ago, I built my very first custom B-body car just like this.
Okay.
That very question was asked. I said, we probably will never see the money that we've got invested in this. And I was wrong.
Okay.
We took it. We have now the record for the most expensive B-body Roadrunner ever sold.
Really?
Yeah, unbelievable. Love it. Customer loves it. Everybody walked away happy, and we built a beautiful car. For me to tell you that this is going to sell for $500,000, $700,000 would be very hard to believe.
Right.
But the time it takes in today's world and today's money, you're $700,000, $800,000 to $1 million easily for this car.
For this car.
Yes, for this car.
It's true though, for most of the cars that you're working on here, right? You're not going to recoup that money for the most part.
On this car, you will not.
On this car,
in most general cars that we work on, you're right. If you restore them, you're going to put in a large chunk of money. They're not going to appreciate as quick or as often.
Right.
But I said that about the Bronco 15 years ago.
I mean, you never know how the market's going to go.
You don't
right?
know.
You and I have had discussions about 32s and how I'll never get one because they'll never get any cheaper,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But in the end here, one thing you've got to understand when you're doing this process, if you're doing it to make a profit, you're probably not going to.
You're going to go backwards.
Only Tim's going to make a profit.
No. Because a lot of times it takes more time than we expect.
No, I know.
And again, the bigger vision. Go into a build with the bigger vision, the 60,000 foot view,
Right.
and then start whittling it down to how you want it to do in the pieces that you want to do it in.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you can do this in bits and pieces like the Divco. You can.
Right.
And again, you don't have to bite it all off into one chunk.
Certainly.
Find the chunks, plan them,
Right.
put the money that needs to go into them, and your budget may be 30, sometimes it might be 35, because when you open it up, you don't know.
Well, I've had some surprise bills and I understand why.
Yes.
So now we're on to the part that we've been teasing this whole video. Let's talk paint and body work.
Paint and body. Actually, where it starts is the metal shop, because without metal, we don't know. So what we've got here is completely stripped down, and every bit of this is a 1966 original sheet metal car, except for the back end. It was so rusted out, we had to cut this in and replace it.
Right.
So after that, it goes straight to the body shop, and let's go to the body shop.
Okay.
Hey!
Here I am.
Man, I feel like a ping pong ball.
Well, we're
bouncing back and forth everywhere.
Hey, we try and pass you around. Nothing like a Husman Bros party.
Yes, sir. So this is the body shop. The body shop does lots of different things. They do very light metal work.
Okay.
They do shaping, building custom metal parts. Back here, they also make the underlying piece of this car, the car that it is.
Okay.
The guys in the body shop never get the credit they deserve. The painters always get the credit on how beautiful the cars look, because they're the painters, and end of the day, they make it look nice on top.
But paint does not look good on gnarly metal, right?
No, or bad Bondo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, oh yes. So
paint's a big concern.
absolutely. Like this particular truck here, this is a very high-end custom build.
Okay.
Right? What we've got is a number of different avenues to go. I mean, you have an all-original car, you don't need to go to the detail of this. We have over 1,000 hours of bodywork time, and the truck came to us perfect.
So if they're putting 1,000 hours of body work into this truck, what are they trying to build here?
Well, what we're building is probably a $300,000 or $400,000 build truck. It's 1,150 horsepower motor set up for this. We're going to go back into the chassis thing, and I'll show you another cool custom chassis. And what this body work is making everything super smooth.
Yeah.
If you notice these little bumps here, this is because the sheet metal is not flat. If you notice here and here, what is happening is the metal is moving based on the temperature.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is we're chasing a rabbit down a hole. We ordered in some stuff in Houston that's going to hopefully help us with this. The manufacturer of the metal actually is involved in helping us try to figure out how to stop the undulation of the metal. If you look at this body lines, look how super clean everything is.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is
very well spaced.
It's absolutely perfect. that takes a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not easy to fit all these pieces together. It's the most delicate puzzle.
It never came from the factory, even close to this.
I was gonna say, I mean,
Yeah.
plenty of really nice cars that you can buy right off the lot today don't have lines as good as that.
No, that's
Now,
where our time
high-end
was
luxury,
spent.
different story.
Exactly.
You pay for it though, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we spend a lot of our time. We've done a bunch of custom work in the metal department here, but the
Yeah.
body lines are absolutely key to the finished product.
Yeah.
Once it's done and you put the paint on, everything just lights up and you go, wow, that is a lot of work put into this.
Yeah.
And it is.
If you're gonna go the easy way out and you're just gonna buy a project that somebody's already completed and they're ready to move on, one of the best ways to tell that build quality is really check out those lines and the gaps from one side to another. A vehicle should be symmetrical. It's
Correct.
really what makes it pretty.
That is correct. The more symmetrical, the better it looks, and end of the day, the overall build and quality of it is represented when you take care of these details.
Yeah. So we talked about a lot of the things that a lot of people don't see when they see a show car out and about. What they really see is this beautiful car painted, glistening in the sun. But you have to start with a good foundation if you want to get to a great finished product. So let's go talk some paint and show us what the finished product looks like once you take this kind of care of the foundation.
All right, Tim, well, I've been waiting here a little while, so this may be a little goofier interview than I wanted.
Yeah, it smells good in
It
here.
smells fantastic.
Yeah.
This is great.
I'm feeling it.
This is why you are the way you are. So we're talking paint now. We're at this point.
We
right?
are.
And
We are.
so all this looks expensive.
It is.
Yeah. So explain to me.
Okay, in a paint scenario, you have cars that you've seen multiple colors. The paints weren't mixed 100%.
Faded, right.
Faded. They weren't. The colors just weren't matching.
Okay.
What we did is make a decision to get our own paint bank. And
Okay.
what that means is we will control 100% of the entire aspect of the paint.
Okay.
We build it, we design it, we put it on. We don't have to have an outside person bring us product. And if we fall short of paint or we have to do a redo, I don't have to rely on
your
someone else to bring me paint that's not going to match.
Exactly, because
Yes.
that's the problem, right?
Yes,
if it's
that
not
is
blended
100%.
correctly, if it's not
Yes.
made to the right formula. So I assume you have a spectrometer of some sort.
We do.
You can decide what color you want.
Yes, sir.
We need 2% this one, 5% this one, and then goes in the base, right?
Well, it actually is grams. Everything's
Grams.
measured on grams, and we have a little
Okay.
scale that we pour it all on. And if we over pour, it stops us and makes us go back and make more paint
To fix it.
It's
Okay.
pretty sophisticated tools. Some of the best there is in the industry is what it is.
Really interesting. So, we talked earlier and you said it's about 2 gallons to paint a car.
Yes, that's
Okay.
about right.
And this is just paint,
Paint only,
right?
nothing
so now
else.
there are other things that go in here, hardeners, softeners,
Redu-
all kinds of stuff, right?
Reducers.
Reducers, all those things. So just these 2 gallons of paint before we add any of that in. How many dollars are we at in materials?
That particular paint is about $850 a gallon,
Wow.
give or take. That's
And it's still not ready to shoot.
It's not even close. The reason there's space in the cans is so when we go to pour our hardeners and our reducers in there, it then brings it up to a gallon to a gallon and a half. So technically you could put about 2.5, sometimes 3 gallons of paint
Right.
in an entire build
When it's
because
all
you're
done.
you're painting inside, you're painting outside,
Yeah,
you're
we're
painting
talking about a full rotisserie restoration.
Exactly,
situation.
exactly.
So it's not just this though. So in materials in general, how many dollars, before we get to any time,
Yeah.
how many dollars are we into a paint job for a car, a good paint job?
A simple paint job could be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 in materials. A custom paint job, just material cost could be anywhere from $8,000 plus.
Really?
Pick a number, because if
Sure.
you want a red, a custom red, or you want a custom yellow, which are the 2 most expensive colors to make.
Really?
And the toners that you see in the background, those are to create all the different colors. We painted a red Volkswagen. It took 6 different red toners to create the
get the
color,
right.
to get the
Wow.
color that we want. And each one of those is multi-$100 for a little.
Yeah, you said one of these is about $350.
Yeah, yeah. yeah.
Phenomenal.
It
So-
is phenomenal.
So this is where all the lab work happens.
Correct.
Right? And
Yes.
so you said a paint job, we're talking 40, 50, 60, who knows,
Well,
right? It could
an
be
average,
anything.
and to be fair, I tell every customer the one thing: the average paint job could cost $30,000.
Got it. Well, let's
right?
see where that happens.
Let's go. What we have in the booth right now is a Camaro that's going to go into primer,
Okay.
and its final primer, which then what we do is we sand it back down and we paint the car.
Right.
So you get to see something right before it actually gets shot.
So, and you mentioned that, you know, it's not just primer. You've got polyesters and you've got acids to wash it and keep it clean.
You do.
Because really a good paint job comes from good prep, more than anything else.
100%.
Okay.
With bad prep is bad results.
Absolutely.
And this particular car, along with all the others, we do a phosphoric acid wash.
Okay.
We do a zinc wash. We wipe it and clean it, and then we do a phosphoric primer.
Okay.
And that epoxy primer sticks to the car, and then we let it sit for 2 to 3 weeks before we touch it again.
These cars will sit in this booth just even for the prime stage for a couple days, you said, right?
Minimum.
A minimum for a
Absolute
couple
minimum.
days.
Yes. We just painted a car. This car replaced it. It was in the booth 14 days before we pulled it out of the booth for all the detail work.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't even paint the inside yet.
Wow. Okay,
Yes.
so really, materials are not the cost, it's the time.
Time is
Right, the time and the knowledge the time someone spent gaining that knowledge to do a good
Correct.
job, right?
Correct.
So once we've got it painted, and we're not here yet,
Yes.
but once we've got it painted, what's the next step before we get to delivery?
Well, next steps, final steps actually.
Final steps,
Let's go
okay.
final steps.
Sure.
Next steps is the best steps.
Okay,
The
right.
customer gets to come in and look how beautiful their car is.
Right.
It's everything that they've asked for. What we do is we send it over to our buffing and wet sanding, and I mean, I know this looks like we just completely murdered this paint job.
But I know how it works.
But you know, you sand it down and it looks like that when it's done. So
Right. Now this isn't even the final stage, right?
no, not. This is first steps
Okay.
where we just buff it down so we can start assembling the car.
Okay.
It will come back after everything's assembled, and it will get more. It'll get wet sanded again, and it will also then be polished 2, maybe 3 times.
Really?
Different steps along the way.
Excellent. Okay, Tim, this has been very educational. Now, we started with a Bronco, we should end with a Bronco.
Yeah.
Let's go see the end result once you invest all of this energy into a Bronco.
Let's do it.
So here's the finished product.
Absolutely.
Through the miracle of video editing, it's like an infomercial where we put the ingredients in the oven and pull it right out. Here's what it looks like.
And this car is phenomenal. Just
It's-
a beautiful car.
Yeah.
But it took a lot to get here, as you can see from our video. So,
More than anything, I think the overall theme of this is you're going to get what you pay for. So start from a good plan in the beginning, find the right general contractor, the shop that's going to help you execute that plan so that you can end up with the vehicle that you want.
we didn't start with a plan, and we've been putting patches on our Divco for many years now. And had we started with a plan, we'd be in a different place. But
Yeah.
hopefully this video taught you a little something. Please subscribe for more great content like this down below.
Tell us about the project that you're working on or that you dream of working on. We'd love to hear about it, and come back and see us next time.
Buy a shirt.